Jordan, 16.
Bailey, 16.
Tony, 17.
Lindsay, 17.
Alexis, 16.
Trey, 17.
Good morning. My name is Delaney. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Egyptian culture. It has lasted for more than 3,000 years. It was founded on thousands of years of cultural and technological development. Today it is still flourishing, and ancient Egyptian imagery, concepts, and perspectives are found everywhere. There are three major tenets that go along with Egyptian culture: religion, gender roles and statuses, and architecture. First, I'm going to share with you the details of the Egyptians' religion. Religion was an essential part of the Egyptians' daily life. It was so important to them. They considered themselves to be co-laborers with the god. But all the formal religious practices were centered around the pharaoh. Even though he was human, people believed that he was a descendant of the gods. The pharaoh acted as a link between his people and the gods. He was obligated to sustain the gods through rituals and offerings so that the order could be maintained in the universe. But the way they interacted with their gods was through temples. Nobody had to know why they went to the temples. It was for their own reasoning. This way of practice grew much more popular once the status of the pharaoh declined. Through these temples, the Egyptians made great efforts to ensure the survival of their souls after death, providing tombs, grave goods, and offerings to preserve the bodies and spirits of the deceased. So as you can see, religion was a key component of the Egyptian culture. It displayed how important the gods were to them. This info was found on a website titled Religion in Ancient Egypt. It was last updated in 2012. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the differences in gender roles and statuses. In this type of culture, women were extremely different than men. They had to do all the household work, like cooking and cleaning. They also take care of children until they were ready to take care of themselves. They also had to complete the productive work, especially in the cities. But in rural areas, they worked in the fields. They had to tend to the crops until they were ready to be put in the market. If you were to compare the men and women's social statuses, you would see that men had more rights than women. Although they both had equal legal rights, equality wasn't for the law. Equal pay only applied when they were working in the formal sector, but not in the informal sector. Men were paid more than women. Women also do not have the same legal rights as men when it comes to personal statuses such as marriage, divorce, and child custody. Like only the Egyptian men have the right to pass on Egyptian nationality to their children. In their home, men have more power than women. They were required to make all the big decisions in the family. Now you can see how important the men and how different the roles of men and women were in the society. Men were above women. This info was found on a website titled Egypt. It was last updated in 2016. My final point, I'm going to talk about Egypt's architecture. The ancient architecture of Egypt is so fascinating and unique. It is something so diverse and interesting that will live on forever. And many people will travel to visit and admire it. But in ancient Egypt, they are used in a much different way. Almost all Egyptian pyramids served as tombs for the pharaoh and their family members. They built these pyramids and tombs with stone because it was the most durable of all building materials. But there was one thing they had to do before burying the bodies. They had to preserve them, mummify them. They had to do this to the body before they could even be placed in a tomb because mummification slowed down the process of decay. They also mummified the body because they believed the body was the house for the soul and it had to remain together. Even after death, the Egyptians believed that the spirit could only live on if the body was preserved forever. If the body was lost, so was the spirit. The thought was that if the body decayed, they lost the spirit, and they could not live on forever. You can now understand how important these pyramids and tombs were because without them, their spirit could not live on forever. I used two websites for this. The first one was titled The Guide to the World of the Ancient Egyptians. It was last updated in 2016. The second website is titled Mummification in Ancient Egypt. It was last updated in 2016. These three major tenets, religion, roles and statuses, and architecture, are some of the most important elements of Egyptian culture. This culture has endured, mostly because in today's time they still retain their own way, which creates a sense of togetherness in their culture. But even though their culture is extremely different, their technology, imagery, concepts, and perspectives are so distinct, they have impacted the world and the lives of many people today. Thank you.
Jordan, 16.
16.
Tony, 17.
Lindsay, 17.
Alexis, 16.
Trey, 17.